What is up, guys? This is Cody on the Real Sports Talk, bringing you the Subway Fresh Fit 500 post-race video. Denny Hamlin takes the win at a track that 2 years ago bit him in the butt when it came to the championship standings. He ran out of gas here a couple years ago, and he wins a fuel mileage race here. So it's a little bit of redemption for him. Kevin Harvick finishes second. After running out of gas with basically a lap to go, they had such a lead on the third place car, Hamlin and Harvick, that Harvick ran out of gas and was still able to finish in second position. So that was pretty incredible. I was completely surprised by that. But I guess it's only a 1 mile track, but still, that's a huge gap that they had on the third place car in Greg Biffle. Anyway, I'll just run through some of the events of the race here, just let you know how it went down. Clint Bowyer blew out 2 right front tires in the first 25 laps of the race, and the second right front blown was probably an issue caused by the first one that was blown. That was the only tire issue I believe he had after that. So it was only the 2 blowouts for Clint Bowyer, but he didn't have that great of a day after that, obviously, because he tore his car up a little bit, hitting the wall in the second time. Kasey Kahne, one of the favorites to win the race, between Bowyer's 2 tire issues, actually overcorrected. I think he was running in the top 5 or the top 10 at the time, and he overcorrected his car after he got loose coming onto the front stretch, and he just slapped the wall, and that kind of took away his hopes of having a good finish. He ended up finishing 34th, and a little bit later, Casey Mears wrecked. His brakes went out. That was kind of a precursor, and we were kind of just wondering what would happen with these cars on these long runs. Would the brakes hold up, especially at these speeds? At other tracks like Martinsville and excuse me, Bristol, you get the speed, but you also have the banking. And at this track, it's not so much banking in the corners as much as it is brake usage. And also with that one line, you had to stick in that line, or else you'd have to use a lot more brake to keep your car from hitting the wall. And then Paul Menard, kind of coming onto the front stretch again, he kind of got up into A.J. Allmendinger in that 22 car, and Allmendinger slapped the wall, and he knocked that rear wing, or the spoiler, excuse me, all out of whack. And Jamie McMurray was also involved in that wreck, and he would later have an issue with his engine. And Jimmy Johnson was dominating all day. Well, he had a dominant car all day. He wasn't dominating all day. After that wreck, he had to come in for a second pit stop because he had a rear tire issue. He had that fixed. I think he came out of the pits in like 24th, and he came back to finish 4th on the racetrack. It was just a product of him he had probably one of the fastest cars at the end of the race, but he was not able to pass cars when he needed to on that restart. Brad Keselowski held him up probably for, like, I'd say 20 to 40 laps, just trying to get by Brad K, and at least, and that had to be frustrating for Jimmy Johnson. He actually put the bumper to him a couple times, but the one time he did put the bumper to him, the car behind him actually got around him, and Jimmy Johnson lost a spot because he slowed down after he hit Brad Keselowski's bumper. So that was an issue for Johnson, as it was for all the drivers today, just getting around and making passes. It was frustrating for everyone. I'm honestly surprised we didn't see more wrecks, as I said in my pre-race video, just because everyone was getting frustrated. It seemed that way at the end of the race, and people trying to make passes and just not being able to do it. It was almost like a road course scenario where there's only a few places on the track you can pass, except nowhere was really a good spot to pass on this racetrack today. You just had to get a good run, and hopefully your car would stick in the corner, either underneath or above that guy. And the above line seemed to be the line that would prevail coming out of the corner. So there were a lot of cars trying passes on the low side, and the car that was trying to hold the position would go on the high side and just get the momentum going out of the corner and pull off onto the straightaway in front of the car that was trying to make the pass. So moving forward with that, a little bit more on Jimmy Johnson. Not really this race, but, well, it was in this race, but it's not specific to this race. The suspension of Chad Knaus was appealed, and the car chief, I forget his name, but those two guys, the 6-race suspension. So Chad Knaus was on the pit box this week, and he will be until that suspension goes through the appeals board that NASCAR has, which will take 1 to 2 weeks. That's what it usually takes, and we'll see what happens with that suspension of Chad Knaus and the car chief at that point, and they might serve their 6-race suspension. It might get reduced, or it might get wiped out altogether, but that usually doesn't happen with NASCAR's board. It'll probably stand the decision they made, and that will be that. So moving on, David Rudiman, his first race in the 10 car this year, after Danica Patrick drove that Stewart House car last week. He was driving that car. He was having an okay run. He finished, I don't remember, he blew out an engine. So it was at the edge of a fuel window, so that made an interesting scenario for everyone, whether they were going to take gas, or they were going to try to go to the end with the gas they had, or if they were going to plan on coming in again. Most people just went to the end with the gas they had and tried to work that. But in an effort to save some gas, Tony Stewart shut off his car, and it wouldn't refire for him, and he ended up having to get pushed to the pits, and he had to take that thing behind the wall because the thing wouldn't refire at all for the remainder of that race. And just trying to save gas there, they did that last year with the carburetors. The fuel injection happened to Joey Logano last week. He tried to shut off his car, and in this case it just bit Stewart in the butt because he couldn't get it refired, and he ended up with a poor finish on that, a 22nd place finish. And coming off of that restart then, we had Carl Edwards getting into Ryan Newman in that groove, just getting a little loose and getting sideways, and Newman was a victim of circumstances there, trying to ride that top line. And that was a thing that really helped a lot of people in the sense that it saved some gas for them. And I'm surprised more cautions didn't breed cautions, because there were 312 laps in this race. The final caution was in lap 256. I was expecting, especially with this tough passing and the hard racing that was going on and the lack of grip, this lap 256 incident was the last incident of the race. And I was not expecting that. With the cautions breeding cautions theory, especially at this track, I was expecting that to go through, and we'd have at least one green-white checker. The theory being cautions bring the field together, provide more racing. At the end of the race, it's more aggressive, so that's that theory. But that obviously didn't apply to this race. It did for that wreck, but after that, there were no other wrecks. And ultimately, Harvick charged up on Hamlin in the last few laps with the help of some lapped cars, and he got to his bumper, and it looked like he was going to be able to make a move on Hamlin and actually give him a run for his money. But as I said, he ran out of gas with about a lap to go, and Denny Hamlin wins the race. It's his second win since his championship run in 2010, where he won 8 races. He won 1 race last year, and this, with Darian Grubb, last year's championship-winning crew chief of Tony Stewart, on Denny Hamlin's team now, this could be a very dangerous team moving forward. They flexed the muscle on the superspeedway. I can't really put a lot into that, but at this track, they were looking good, and I would just say that look out for them moving forward. I think I said in one of my preseason videos that he was going to be a guy later in the season to look out for, but it looks like he is surging right now, and he's going to be a force to be reckoned with early. We'll just have to see. The way that Jeff Gordon was last year, he was strong early to mid-season, and he kind of faded off toward the end, and we'll have to see if Hamlin, if he keeps it up. It's still early to say that, but if he keeps it up, his pace that he's running at right now, because he is now in the points lead, and it's just a huge improvement from last year that we're seeing just in these first couple races, with Mike Ford being gone and Darian Grubb replacing him. A great hire by Joe Gibbs. It's appearing at this point, and could be a team to be reckoned with later in the season. And also Kurt Busch, I believe he finished in 15th or in the mid-teens somewhere, so that's better than Phoenix Racing was running last year, and I think that's something that I don't know how much it really shows, because this was a race in which I think the 20th place car was like 2 or 3 laps down. So I can't really say whether that's a stellar performance by him or if the race team's going to be a contender moving forward. It's too early to say that. We're going to have to see a couple more races. So the final results were Denny Hamlin at first, Harvick coasting to the finish line in second, Greg Biffle finished in third after his third-place finish last week. That's 2 third-place finishes for him. Jimmy Johnson comes back to finish in 4th position after his tire issues on that caution. And Brad Keselowski finishes in 5th position. And some notables: Tony Stewart finishes in 22nd, as I said, Kurt Busch in 15th, and Casey Kane in 34th, as I said. Marcus Ambrose, who was running in 3rd after that last caution, he was running really well, keeping pace with the leaders, and he had an engine failure, or an engine issue as well. He ended up finishing in the 32nd position in that number 9 Ford. What we saw today basically was with the tire package that was brought to Phoenix. They had the left sides that were actually very effective in 2-tire stops. Usually you see the right sides, but they were leaning on the left sides a lot today when they were driving around the corners and trying to wheel them around these corners. And it was very tough to complete these passes at this track. Hopefully we'll see some better racing at Las Vegas next week. It's a fast track, and it should be a lot of fun to watch. Thanks for checking me out.